Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the Clemson Tigers All In Show here on the Clemson Football Voice of College Football YouTube channel. I am your host, Jordan Bowman. I will be joined shortly by my co-host, Tiger Paul Craven. He has his daughter had a softball scrimmage tonight, their first scrimmage of the season. So hopefully it went well. I'm sure he'll fill us all in on that when he comes in here. But he will be joined shortly. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Really loaded show. Obviously the spring game was this past weekend. A lot of stuff to talk about there. Standout players, big moments, concerns, questions, a lot to talk about. And then there was plenty more to follow during the week. A lot of certain controversy regarding scholarship numbers, stuff like that. We're going to talk about that as well. And Clemson also got a commitment on it like 30 minutes ago. So we'll talk about that as well. And they're due to get another one, I think, pretty soon. So we'll talk all about that as well. But before we get into all of that, make sure you guys hit that like button if you haven't already. We really greatly appreciate you guys coming in. I see we've already got a good number of people in here. So let's get that like number up. And make sure you guys check those links out in the description as well. It has the Mark Rogers Venmo. It's got the link to his merch, a link to the Discord or the Patreon, where you get access to the Discord and other perks. So make sure you guys check that out as well. And of course, the super chat option is always available if you want to post your comments and questions, and make sure that we read them. We try to get to every single comment, but depending on the day, sometimes the comment section is really loaded. So make sure that you guys, if you want to make sure you get your question read, that's a way to do it as well. But without further ado, I'm going to give a shout out to the comments. Let's see. We've already got some people in here. Ben Adams, good to see you. He's become pretty much our resident Michigan fan. So glad to see you in here. John Sarian, another regular. Glad to see you, man. LFG, he said he comes in and says, I like this video. And John also said happy 420. So I didn't even realize that. Yeah. So I will not expound any further on that, but happy 420 to all of those that celebrate that. LFG chimes in as well. That's awesome. Let's see who else is in here. Hi, me. I posted in the comment section earlier. Chisel Jackson, good to see you. He says, if you ever played the game, you realize quick Jordan knows what he's talking about. Props to you. Chisel, I greatly appreciate that. I like to think that, I'm not a complete idiot when I'm talking about football. So it's good to know that other people feel the same. So I greatly appreciate that. Let's see who else is in here. Brady Holmes. He comes in and says, "Yo, what's up, Brady? Good to see you, man. Um, good to see you." Steel Gamble comes in with a "Go Tigers, man." All right, I think I covered everything. Yeah, so make sure you guys, if you guys have, I'll just take comments and questions until Tiger Paw Craven gets in here. John Starian says, "Time to start coming up with nicknames already. Maybe the Whoop-Ass Brothers." Yeah, I've seen that a couple of times on here, on Twitter especially. It's a pretty funny nickname. So I hope we get that trending. So I can't wait to see those two on the field at the same time. That would be awesome. But really, but we'll get in more into that. Obviously, Drew Woodaz committing to Clemson just a short while ago. My co-host Tiger Paw Craven has just joined, so I'm going to bring him on. What's going on, man?
Yo, what's up, everybody? How we doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Seems like the live chat's doing good. We got a lot to talk about. I know you're excited. But before we talk about that, how did that little scrimmage go?
Hey, man, my daughter's scrimmage went great tonight, man. I'm
Did it?
super excited. Awesome. I'm stoked. Just coming back from the scrimmage between my daughter's 12U team and the 15U team that we scrimmaged tonight. She got a couple walks tonight. She got a couple outs at second base, and it was a great night tonight, man. She played really well, and it went a little late, so I apologize for my tardiness. John Sarian's already called me out for my tardiness, so I do apologize, guys. But I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about Clemson football. I'm excited to chop it up with my boy Jordan Bowman here, man. I look forward to this every week with our fans here in the live chat. It seems that it's popping, and I can't wait to get into it, man. We got a lot to talk about tonight.
Yes, we do. Oh, and I just wanted to clarify before we move. I wanted to just clarify your daughter went up against a 15U softball team.
Yeah.
And how old is she?
She's 11 right now. So
wow.
She went against a 15U softball team tonight
and got on base.
And got on base twice tonight.
Yeah.
Every time she came up, she got on base. So
that's awesome.
It was a good night. It was a good night in the Tiger Paw Craven household. When it comes to softball. So I'm super proud. I'm super excited. And I can't wait to chop it up about Clemson football. My second love,
Absolutely. and she's going to be playing for Clemson pretty soon anyway. So
no doubt. No doubt. Shout out Coach Rittman. You better be looking out for my daughter.
Yep.
You'll be offering her a scholarship one day if you're still there.
It's happening.
For sure. She'll be donning that Tiger Paw one day, for sure.
Absolutely. All right, so let's dive right on into it. Let's just go ahead and start with the spring game. That's what everybody came in here to talk about. We've obviously got some other news that I mentioned, but obviously the biggest thing of the week or weekend was the spring game. A lot of excitement, really awesome attendance at the game. So I just kind of wanted to start with what were your kind of overarching takeaways? Your overarching takeaways from the game. We'll dive into more of the specifics and individual players, but what did you think about how the game was played overall?
I enjoyed how the game was set up. So, those of you that have been around Clemson for a long time, that have been longtime Clemson fans, you kind of know how Clemson structures their spring game. And they've always structured it in a way where they kind of split the teams evenly. and Dabo Swinney kind of selects 2 different head coaches, and he kind of takes a back seat, and he'll make the sack calls, if you will. Much criticized last season on the spring game for his sack calls, but that's kind of how Clemson's done it in the past. But they did a little bit different flavor coming into this spring game. They did have Garrett Riley as a new offensive coordinator. They had, a relatively new defensive coordinator. So there was a lot of newness when it came to the coordinator position. So Clemson took a little bit of a different approach this season, right? They decided to go 1v1 and then 2v2, right? So they did first team offense versus first team defense as much as they possibly could. Those of you that watch the Clemson broadcast, Dabo Swinney made it well known that obviously this is not our complete first team offense or our first team defense. We got a lot of guys missing. Most notably, Will Shipley was missing. There was a lot of guys on defense missing as well. There was, 3 different starting offensive linemen that were missing. There was a lot of guys missing, but it was as best as we could. First team offense versus first team defense, and second team offense versus second team defense, which I thought was a really unique take for Clemson to do. And it did play out for some competitive football, I feel like. So that was really good to see. And as always, Dabo Swinney is an entertaining individual. Anytime you put a microphone in Dabo Swinney's face, he's going to come out with some good stuff. He's going to say some crazy things. He was out there interviewing players. He was breaking down plays. He was giving insight to what the offense and the defense both were doing. And I thought it was a great production. And to be honest, I'm glad that the networks are now starting to cover the spring games as what they are, right? They're a glorified practice, okay? They're not a game, so you can't broadcast them like a game. So it's very nice to see them, get down with the coaches and interview players and kind of let people talk about, different nuances of the rosters and, talk about, new players and players that are coming back and how the development of different players are going. So I really do like that about the new spring format, that it kind of seems that college football is taking when it comes to that,
Absolutely. And, to kind of piggyback off of that, it was really the whole environment of that game just felt a little bit, different in years past. And, you mentioned the broadcast. Obviously Dabo is always going to be, kind of running the show there. But you could tell there was kind of a renewed sense of energy about the program and about, the game itself. Obviously the final score wasn't anything to write home about, but and we'll talk about it more. I felt like there were some things that were different about this game compared to previous years. That kind of gives me a lot of reason to think that there's kind of a rejuvenated sense of excitement in this program. So, it was a great game, a great atmosphere. It was more competitive than I thought it would be. It was kind of a lot of back and forth. Some twists and turns, some untimely turnovers, of course.
For sure, man.
This game kind of had it all, but you also saw some really awesome flashes from certain true freshmen, from guys that some veterans as well. So it was a good mix of youth and experience making plays, just all over the field on both sides of the ball. So I as much as the reaction about the offense and all of that was, I think the game was pretty competitive, and it didn't feel as much as sluggish as maybe like the last two. Like it felt, it was still kind of a punt fest, but it was more, there was definitely more swing plays involved in the game. and just it felt like there was still it was more a result of the team still learning something new instead
Yeah.
of no we're running this stale old scheme and everybody the defense knows exactly what's coming and all of
Right.
that. So
Yeah. How about that
I
first
think that
kick
was
by?
good.
How about that first kick by Boyd? Huh?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Hey man.
Liam Boyd. Yeah, that was pretty incredible. That was the first time I think I had probably heard his name like, in passing or just I probably saw it when Clemson during signing day when they announced all the players that signed. He was probably
Yeah,
on there. I think he's
I'm
a redshirt
sure.
freshman.
But
But
there.
man, when he kicked that 51-yard, I was like, I thought that was Robert
Yo,
Gunn at first, but I was like,
hey,
that's not that 37. That ain't Robert Gunn. Who is that? And he nailed that thing. That
oh
was
for
pretty incredible.
sure. Yeah. The voice of college football got in here, Jordan. I don't know if you saw him. He said, you guys might be happy to know I declared FSU as the dumb fan
I
base
saw that
of the
on
day.
Twitter. Yeah, they were beating poor Mark up in the quote tweets. I was shocked. I was like, he usually doesn't. I mean, when he tweets something, he usually is very the
Yeah.
reaction he gets is very positive, and because he's just a very well knowledgeable guy, and he says he makes reasonable takes and reasonable opinions. And
Right.
so when I saw like and there's some Florida State people I follow as well. So I would see the people that quote tweeted. I saw Mark's original tweet, and yeah. So he basically said that FSU was the dumbest fan base of the day, and they did not like that. They did not like that.
Oh,
So but
they got
it was.
salty about that, huh?
Hey, Mark didn't lay down though.
Dang.
He stood his ground. He said, I kind of viewed some of his responses to the people, and it was it was pretty interesting. But it's pretty cool to see Mark because he usually just doesn't get into those kind of
Right.
debates or online
Look,
debates. He'll do it on the call-in show, but
right.
it was kind of a different format, so it was cool to see Mark kind of flex his muscles a little bit because
Right.
he was kicking some butt.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, look, FSU fans, and those of you that the small group, I will say, of FSU fans that are getting a little crazy, a little out of hand, a little outlandish with their predictions or their expectations. You got to prove it on the field, and you weren't able to do that last season. I'm not saying you can't do that this season, but it's yet to be seen. And I think it's a little premature to say that they will do that this season. Me and you have talked about it quite a bit, both on this channel and both offline when me and you have conversations. And I think FSU will be a good team, but you got to go out there and you got to prove it on the field. And until that happens, it is what it is.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on.
Yep.
Let's kind of get into some of our we'll start with the I don't know. Do you want to start with the negatives or the positives first about this spring game? Because there was certainly a healthy
Let's
mix.
let's start with the negative first, and then we will encompass it with some of our more positive thoughts on this Clemson team heading into 2023. I think it's important to criticize this team when it comes to some things, but overall, I think we need to wait and see what's going to happen. So I think we'll start with the negatives, and then we'll encompass that with the positives as we go on throughout the show.
Sounds good. Let's do it. So, I guess I'll start us off with a negative
Yeah.
because, and this is probably the one that jumped out to everybody the most. Let's just get this one out of the way. The receivers are just not where they need to be, and obviously, There is a
Yep.
lot of injuries at that position. Bo Collins didn't play in this game. Adam Randall didn't play in this game. Antonio Williams and Cole Turner were basically on a pitch count. Will Taylor didn't play in this game.
Yep.
There was Troy Stellato didn't play in this game.
Nope.
Although we haven't really seen anything from him, but but still, the
But
body.
he's a guy. He's a guy that we eventually expect to produce. So I get what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. The receiver play outside of Hampton Earl, who unfortunately went down with an injury during that game. So I haven't heard any update on that. It looked pretty serious, but I don't want to speculate, and I'm sure they're still examining and trying to get a real prognosis before they release anything. Honestly, Hampton Earl had the best day of all the receivers, which kind of tells you the state of Clemson's receiver room on Saturday. But yeah, this receiver room is not very deep, and we just this is something that we knew going into the off season, and something that we were hoping would kind of develop with some of the injuries, some more guys having to step up. But it wasn't all bad. It wasn't all bad, but there was certainly a lot of miscues. Honestly, drops weren't a huge issue. Honestly, I think Antonio Williams had the most notable drop, I think, which was really surprising early in that game.
Yeah.
But really, it was just kind of the execution issues. Like blocking on the perimeter was really, really poor. On screens, throwbacks, it was not a very good day for the Clemson wide receivers as far as perimeter blocking. Yes, no. A lot of some of those guys out there were walk-on receivers. Trying to block, some blue chip defensive backs, and that's not always a recipe for success. But it's definitely got to get better in that in that category. You have to for this Garrett Riley offense to work. You have to block. Because like it or not, Clemson fans, screens are going to be a part of this offense. There's going to be a big part of this offense.
Oh no.
It is a necessary part, but listen, everybody runs screens. It's about how you execute it. It's about how you implement them that determines whether they're effective or not. So that just has to get better. But obviously you don't really have your main guys out there, so you can't really say what it's going to look like when you come out week one. But what'd you think about the wide receivers?
Look, as we knew heading into spring, the wide receiver group is a work in progress. It just is what it is. The wide receiver group is a work in progress. We need guys to step up, but we did not have a Bo Collins. We did not have a Troy Stellato. We did not have a lot of guys in the wide receiver room, right? Yes. Did we have an Antonio Williams? Did we have a Cole Turner and guys like that? Of course. But the continuity at the wide receiver room is not there for Cade Klubnik or any other quarterback for Clemson for that matter. We're really injured at that position. We need to get healthy. We need guys to step up and really answer the call. I did think that, some of the younger guys would have had more of an impact in the spring game than they did. But at the end of the day, those guys just got there, right? They're mid-years. They're basically high school seniors. And at the end of the day, to me, the offense has had 15 practices, right? That's what spring provides you, right? Spring provides you 15 practices, and we are installing an entirely new system on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to Clemson, okay? So that's one thing, okay? Two, it's injuries on that side of the ball, especially when it comes to wide receivers. And I do think that Clemson has the talent necessary to produce at the wide receiver position. I really do. I believe we have the right quarterback. I believe we have the talent at wide receiver. We obviously have the talent at running back. I mean, did you see some of these running backs in the spring game?
Yeah, well, we'll get to that when we get to
And
the positives. Yeah.
yeah, we'll get to it. But Will Shipley didn't even play, and those running backs looked amazing. But with that said, what's kind of your take on? I know we got a lot of wide receivers out. We have some guys that are still really trying to get healthy. An Adam Randall, Troy Stellato, Bo Collins. Those kind of guys are still trying to work back. We expect them to be healthy. We expect them to produce, along with a Cole Turner, along with a Antonio Williams. So we do have guys. We got names. We got big time names in the wide receiver room. They just have to get in there, get healthy, and start to produce, right? But I hear a lot of noise from the Clemson fans, and it may be a small minority. Who really knows? But they're really looking at the wide receiver coach. They're really looking at Tyler Grisham this season. And do you think that the pressure is on for Tyler Grisham this season for his wide receiver room to produce? And if it doesn't, do you think there's a possibility that there could be a change in the wide
100%.
receiver? Okay.
100%. I think Dabo's firing of Brandon Streeter this offseason, I think, sent a message to this coaching staff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially the guys that, are kind of green and haven't been in their positions very long. I think that absolutely sent a message. And we know now for certain that he had these conversations with the staff after the Orange Bowl.
Yep.
There's some pressure on some guys on this staff that haven't really had a lot of production at their particular positions. And wide receiver, a position that Clemson has built their brand off of, the wide receiver all of that has become something short of a liability at times these past two seasons. And that's just not, that should just never happen at a school like Clemson that is produced at that position for such a long time at such a high level. So yeah, I do think there's some pressure on Tyler Grisham. I'm not one to, I'm not going to call for anybody's jobs or anything like that, but I do think that there is pressure, and if there isn't, some significant improvement this season, there's likely going to be some changes made. So
I agree with you. I believe that if there is not significant improvement in the Clemson wide receiver room, I do believe there will be a change when it comes to the coaching staff as far as the wide receiver room. Are you surprised that Noble Johnson didn't have more of an impact on the spring game?
No. And the reason why, and honestly, Noble Johnson, I think I saw enough from him to think there's something there. And
for sure. I'm not disparaging him at all. I'm just saying I feel like some people, not coaches or anything like that, but there was some people that are like, oh, this guy's going to come in and blah, 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 so
yeah.
And that really wasn't the case if you watch the spring game. So
yeah. And listen, it's still spring. There's, he still has the entirety of summer and then fall
Absolutely.
camp to really get acclimated. But, I think he just looked like a freshman, a really talented freshman out there.
Yeah.
That he made some mistakes, but he also had some really nice plays. I mean, that back shoulder to on Malcolm Green, who we'll talk about later in the show, was really, really nice. And he showed a lot of body control and focus and strong, soft hands on that catch. So I thought that was really impressive. I thought he should have had that last Hail Mary. It kind of lost it at the end. It wasn't a bad throw by Vizina. So listen, Noble Johnson, I think he's a guy that I think is very physically developed for his age.
Yeah.
And I think he's got he's got some real athleticism too. I think he's got some speed. So
yeah, no, he's a gifted individual for sure.
Yeah. So I'm not ruling out that he's going to. I'm not ruling out the possibility of him, possibly making an impact for Clemson in the fall. But just from judging from the spring game, he looked like a freshman. So it didn't really surprise me that he didn't just come out and light the world on fire. If that had happened, that would have been awesome, and we would be cheering on about it.
Right, and it looks like maybe he needs a year, and that's okay. Like, look, at the end of the day, that's okay. We got other guys. I just named an entire slew of guys that should step up long before Noble Johnson should step up.
Yep, 100%.
You got Adam Randall, you got Bo Collins, you got Troy Stellato, you have Antonio Williams, you have Cole Turner. I mean, just to name a few of guys that we expect to step up in the wide receiver position this year and produce. I don't think Clemson missed on those guys. Now, we will see how it works out this season. We will see if this offensive scheme is going to produce for Clemson. And I we'll get into it later, but we got dudes at wide receiver. Make no mistake about it. Clemson has talent at wide receiver. Yes, has the wide receiver position underproduced in the last 2 years? 100%. Whether that be injury or whatever the case may be, it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I still believe that Clemson has the talent at wide receiver to produce and do what I think the offense needs to be able to do in order to compete at the highest level.
100%. And to be fair, I don't think this wide receiver room is as talented as what we've had in years past. And
no, of course not.
I'm not comparing it to this group, but I think there is enough there that, especially with under this new offense, that they should be able. This wide receiver room isn't bad enough that the Garrett Riley offense can't create some explosive plays. I think there's something there. So,
right,
but we'll have to see. We didn't even mention Brandon Spector. He's a guy that's been in the program a long time. You hope to see a little bit more from him. If it would be nice, but he's been here a long time, so you just kind of is what it is. He had a good moment in the back. He had a really nice catch in that game. Tight contested throw. I can't remember exactly where it was on the field, but
right.
But and then I think he had a drop as well. So he's got to be more consistent as well. But all in all, wide receivers are what they are. But injured, we don't really know what we have yet in terms of who's going to produce on the field. That's other than really Antonio Williams. So that's something that's still going to be a work in progress. But let's move it on. What is a negative that you took away?
So one of the negatives that I took away from the spring game is that our offense still looks a little discombobulated, right? Cade Klubnik still is, maybe holding on to the ball a little bit longer than he should. Now, that may be, there was a lot of pressure on him due to probably 3 offensive linemen not starting in this spring game. Will Putnam was at a wedding. The other 2 guys are out due to injury. So we do understand that. And then we just got finished talking about the lack of continuity with the wide receiver group. But I do believe that the offense did not play as clean as they could have, right? I believe that, there was some miscues, there was some drop passes, there was some There was some underthrown balls by Cade Klubnik. I think about that one big shot to Cole Turner down the middle of the field where he was streaking wide open. He had beat Troy Stellato, or not Troy Stellato.
Toriano Pride.
Toriano Pride, thank you. He had beat Toriano Pride down the middle of the field, and Cade Klubnik grossly underthrew that ball, and it allowed Toriano Pride to catch up and break up a pass. That could have been a huge play that Clemson, completed on, and they didn't because he grossly underthrew it. So I think there's some growth there for him, just gaining that continuity with his wide receivers, understanding their speed so that he can lay that ball out there for Cole Turner to go get it, because that dude is unbelievably fast, right? And that's going to be important when it comes to the season. So I'm disappointed in some of the, although I think the offensive line played pretty well, we were missing a lot of starters. There were some pressure on the quarterback that, kind of got there. I think we had some issues blocking on the perimeter when it came to the wide receivers, especially when we ran some screen game and things on the perimeter, just trying to get the ball into our playmakers' hands, which is what this offense is designed around. So it's something that Clemson's going to have to get really good at, blocking on the perimeter. These receivers are going to have to buy into that kind of mindset, right? Because this whole offense is designed around getting playmakers the ball. It's designed around getting the ball into the playmaker's hand, whether that's handing it off in the backfield, throwing it out on the flats, or attacking down the middle like we've seen with Enos or our other tight ends. So that's kind of my standout downfalls that I seen. It was mainly offensively, and it was really blocking on the perimeter, and then some miscues by the quarterbacks and the offensive linemen.
Yeah, 100%, and I agree. In regards to Cade, I think there's still some of those things that he still kind of has some of those freshman moments. The two interceptions were really not good. He grossly, I think on that first one when they did that little rollout.
Yeah, man, that was
He put that out. He put that out too late and too high, and allowed. I think it was it Barrett Carter? It was Barrett Carter or Jeremiah Trotter. They got a hand on it. Tip it up to be picked. It just stuff like that. I think his processing needs to be quicker.
Right.
This offense is designed to kind of take some of the thinking out of, take some of the thinking and out of the quarterback's hands. And so, you have to make up for that with timing. You have to be really good with your timing. You have to be on the same page with your receivers. And I think it was just kind of not completely in sync in a couple areas.
Definitely not.
So I think he just needs to be quicker because the opportunities were there. You're seeing the offense scheming guys open and creating ways to get the receivers open. But he's just got to be quicker, and he's got to throw with more anticipation and make those better throws. But I don't want to rag on him too much. Again,
no. Look,
they didn't have the best receiving core that Clemson could possibly field out there right now. So
look,
he's still going to grow, and I think I still trust that Garrett. He's got the right guy, coaching him up. So
look, Cade is our guy. I 100% believe in Cade Klubnik. I think he's going to be a great Clemson quarterback. He will go down in history as one of the good ones that played for Clemson. I'm not disparaging him at all, but he's got some areas that he needs to grow in, and that's really all we're talking about here. I'm not saying that. By no means is there a quarterback competition or anything like that. He's our guy. He's going to produce some amazing plays at Clemson. But there were some miscues, and I think it's just a continuity issue with guys being unavailable in the wide receiver room. Honestly, I think that's what it is. And it's a new offense. Look, they've had 15 practices. You're not going to go into a spring game and show your entire offense, right? That's never going to be the case. So you're going in there with a limited amount of plays. You're going to show what you're going to show. You're going to show some base offense, and that's what you're going to do. And the defense was set up to combat that because they've seen it all spring. So there has to be some give and take when it comes to that, right?
Yeah. And that's just kind of how it is. You have to keep in mind and keep things in perspective with these things. This is still a new offense, and it wasn't an ideal personnel situation on Saturday. So
no,
you have to give him that. You still have to give him that kind of grace.
Absolutely.
With the offensive line, and we'll get to some of the positives because it wasn't all bad on the offensive line, but too much interior pressure, obviously.
Way too much.
I mean, it was understandable considering who they were going up against, and we'll talk about some of the guys on the other side of that line later too. But yeah, the offensive line still, it's kind of musical chairs right now, especially on the interior.
And work in progress.
Yeah, there was a lot of interior pressures given up in that game. A lot of tackles for loss or in sacks. What would have been sacks. And a couple that should have been sacks that Dabo kind of let them get away with, the offense get away with. So
yeah, for sure.
I still think that there's a lot of talent, but you had a lot of true freshmen, a lot of young guys, a lot of inexperience, in there, and you're going up against some really good defensive line players. So I don't want to rag on them too much.
No, for sure not.
Any other negatives? Because I can't really think of any negatives on the defensive side of the ball. Do you have anything?
There's no real negatives on the defensive side of the ball that I saw. We'll get into a lot of the positives over there because I have a lot to say about the defense and how they performed. They performed very well. It's just, look, I know, and let me preface this, okay? I want to talk to just Clemson fans out there, and I'm talking to myself when I say a lot of this stuff. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to everybody out there, right? We kind of came into this spring game. It was a much anticipated spring game when it came to Clemson football, right? This might have been one of the most anticipated spring games in a very long time for Clemson football, right? We got Garrett Riley. He's our new offensive coordinator. We've been starving for a new offensive scheme for quite some time. Don't put too much stock into what you saw in the spring game. I think they came out with a very vanilla look. They were not trying to show a bunch. And I know, look, I get it. A lot of people are like, oh, you're just saying that because you're a fan. And you're like, they're the reason that they didn't perform as well as they should is because they didn't want to show anything. But there's a lot to be said about that, especially with where Clemson is right now. Okay. They have run the same offense since Chad Morris, right? Can we say that? Right?
Yep.
Since Chad Morris, they've
kind of rewashed, revised.
A version of that offense, if you will.
Thrown into the washing machine, thrown into the dryer.
Right. Yeah.
Use a little fabric softener and kind of fluff it up a little bit every once in a while, but nothing really different.
Absolutely. So since 2011, Clemson has basically run a shell of the same offense. Okay. So why would I come out in a spring game in 2023 with my brand new, fresh off the Boros Award winner coordinator and show everything that I got on offense. I wouldn't. Okay. Granted, he was sought after as probably the number one offensive coordinator in the country for any team to get that was looking for an offensive coordinator. Clemson got him. So they're not going to show a whole bunch. They're going to run a very vanilla scheme, which is what they did. They were missing a lot of guys, both at the wide receiver position. They were missing 3 starting offensive linemen, and they ran what they ran. Okay, so do I think there was plenty of negatives to talk about on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to execution, when it comes to things like that? Yes, but hold your criticism, because I think we will see a very different offensive scheme when it comes to real game situations, when it comes to September, October, and November in the season, right? When we get full swing into the season, I think we will see a very different scheme. And if I was a coach, I would have done the same thing that Clemson did in the spring game, and I wouldn't have showed anything.
Yeah, and I'm with you. And this is standard practice in pretty much every other program.
Right.
Nobody's coming out running, pulling out their money plays on.
Yeah, no. As everybody likes to say, it's a glorified practice, right?
Yeah.
It's a televised practice. It's literally a recruiting tool for teams at this point. Like, in my mind, that's what the spring game is. It's a glorified recruiting tool for teams, right? We got players like KJ Henry that come back. We got guys like Dexter Lawrence that come back, and all these guys that have gone on to the NFL and have started successful careers in the NFL. We got these guys coming back, and they're singing Clemson praises. And Dabo Swinney's out there, and he's talking different plays, and he's interviewing players, and it's a really fun environment, right? That's what the spring game is. Never take too much or too little from the spring game, right? Don't get too high, don't get too low from a spring game, because it's just really not that important. In my mind, the spring game is a recruiting tool. First and foremost, it's a recruiting tool. It's a way to get your brand on national television, and 2, it's a way for you to evaluate your mid-year guys that came in, right? Your early enrollees that came in, and we'll get into some of those guys later on in the show.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the defense. We said we didn't really have many negatives to talk about on the defense. We'll allow the defense to start us off with the positives, because there was quite a bit.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
Let's start out with obviously what stood out the most. Probably the star of the entire scrimmage, the stars of the entire scrimmage on both sides of the ball. How about Mr. Peter Woods?
And I was hoping
Mr.
you were going
Smiling Green.
I was hoping you were going to mention them first, man. Holy crap. Wow. I mean, just wow. Like a guy like Peter Woods, right? Okay, I get it. This dude has been so highly recruited. He has had so much expectation in his life when it comes to his recruitment to Clemson. He commits to Clemson, and the coaches for all of spring have been comparing this dude to some of the greatest Clemson defensive linemen that have ever played for Clemson. And that's a long list. For those of you that don't know Clemson football, that's a very, very long list.
Yes.
And a very, very high praise for a young freshman coming into Clemson. I mean, we got some dudes that have played for Clemson. And this dude showed out in the spring game. He showed that he is absolutely ready. He is 100% ready to not only contribute, but be a key part of this defense coming into 2023. That was my takeaway from Peter Woods. This dude is for real. I mean,
he's
making tackle for losses. He's blocking extra points. This dude is doing it all, man. This dude is a worker. He's just a guy that's out there, and he's like, anything I could do to help my team, I'm game. Let's go. And you can't want any more out of a star player, out of a 4-star guy, 4-star. He used to be a 5-star, but apparently his arms are too short, so they downgraded him to a 4-star. But his arms are long enough to block an extra point. I don't know, whatever. But this guy is the real deal, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it just incredible. What stands out to me about Peter Woods is first thing first that jumps off. I mean, one, yes, is he's a grown man. He's very he does not look like a freshman. Just visually, physically, all of that. He looks like Christian Wilkins and did coming in and guys like that. Just coming in, just built and ready to play the college game. But what really stands out to me is just how the violence that he plays with. Peter Woods has probably some of the most powerful hands I've seen from a freshman defensive lineman. They're constantly moving, and it's violent. He's heavy-handed. I mean, you saw him push, just shove Harris Sewell, like just literally out of the play. On one, I think it was on one of it was either Cade's or Vizina's interception. No, it had to have been Cade because he was on the other team.
Cade.
In one of Cade's interceptions, he brutalized Harris Sewell. That is what stands out to me the most. He just plays with an intensity and violence, and his hands are just so powerful. And which is why I'm like, you talked about the recruiting services and how they dinged him for his short arms. It's like it clearly doesn't matter because what he lacks in length, he makes up with in just sheer power and strength. And just he obviously had a really, really good D-line coach at Thompson High School.
Yes.
Because he's really well advanced, just with his hand techniques and all of that and how he how well he uses them. So not only is he just a really, really a talented football player, but he's also had really good coaching. And when you combine those two, that's exactly what you want. That's the ideal for a true freshman. So Peter Woods was all over the field, and you could feel his presence on every snap.
Yeah, and you got a guy that seems super humble, right? This dude just seems like a worker, right? And you listen to Eric McLean talk about him, and he's like, man, that dude reminds me of Grady Jarrett. And when I think of Grady Jarrett, I think of just a hard-nosed worker, right? This dude has been, a staple in the NFL for a very long time. An undersized dude, a guy that has been doubted, a guy that,
he was a 2-star, I think, by 24/7.
Yeah, 2-star when he came into Clemson. And guys were like,
"What is Power 5 offer?" I think.
Yeah, what is Clemson recruiting this guy for? And to be compared to a dude like Grady Jarrett, I think speaks volumes for who Peter Woods is as not only a person but as a player. Because Grady Jarrett, in my mind, is one of the hardest working players that have ever come through Clemson. Right? He's a guy that maximized effort. He maximized his ability because he just outworked everybody, right? And when you hear that comparison to Peter Woods with his physical ability, with his mental ability that the coaches talk about, I mean, this dude, I mean, the sky's the limit for this dude. And it's exciting to see. And you know, the conveyor belt just keeps going, just rolling in defensive lineman after defensive lineman for Clemson. It's becoming a, you know, it's becoming a quite a destination when it comes to defensive linemen at Clemson University. You know, we always used to be known as wide receiver U with you know, Nuke Hopkins and you know, who else?
Sammy Watkins, Martavis Bryant,
right?
You know, T. Higgins, Justin Ross, Mike Williams. I mean, we go down the line of receivers.
Yeah, go down the line. You could do the same at defensive line, and we keep rolling these guys in, and it's exciting to see as a Clemson fan. These dudes keep rolling in, and this dude seems to be a team player. He seems to be a guy that's going to really solidify that defensive line for the next 3 years for Clemson. You know, I know we got a Tyler Davis. I know we got a Ruka Rororo. I know we got XT. You know, I know we got all these guys. But when you bring a young guy in, when you bring new juice like that in, it really infects the entire defense. And you can tell everybody's talking about him exactly the same. Coaches, players, media members that get to watch practice, they're all talking about him exactly the same. And, you know, early on, I was like, man, we need to chill. Like, this dude, like, you guys are putting a lot on him. And then you see him in a spring game and you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess it just is what it is, man. This dude's just different. So it's good to see. It's good to see a guy like that just be in there, man. And they've talked about him. They've talked about him being at defensive tackle. They've said that he can move anywhere along the defensive line. So, which is super important for Clemson because, you know, little lean on the defensive on the end positions. So it'll be interesting to see the impact that a guy like Peter Woods has on this defense this season, because I think it's going to be huge. This guy, you don't keep a guy like that off the field. No. He's going to be a major player for Clemson this season on the defensive side of the ball, for sure.
Absolutely. And let's talk about although he wasn't the headliner, a guy that also showed out, you know, right alongside him, Mr. Stephylan Green. My personal favorite defensive line. He was my personal, you know, favorite defensive line take in this class.
There you go.
I thought he was extremely underrated. You know, he rose really late in the cycle, but I still felt like he wasn't high enough. And at least so far, I think I've been vindicated. But Stephylan Green, he's another guy that's going to make an impact for this team at some point during the season. You know, if Peter Woods wasn't in this class, Stephylan Green would be getting the praise that Woods is getting.
Yes, 100%. You are 100% vindicated. He would absolutely be getting all the praise that Peter Woods has been getting. The only downfall to him is that Peter Woods came in the same class that he did. Yeah. That's literally the only downside. And man, think about the depth that Clemson has now on the defensive line with these new guys, with these freshmen, these mid-enrollees. They're basically high school seniors, and they're out here absolutely dominating on the defensive side of the ball. And look, they're going to be a problem, both of them, and that just speaks to the level of talent that Clemson recruits and that speaks to what our depth is going to be along that defensive line, especially in the interior. It's going to be something serious, man.
Yep.
Better look out. Better look out this season, man, because we can roll in dude after dude. And we didn't have our whole we didn't have our whole array of defensive linemen in this game because a lot of them were out resting, recuperating from surgeries and different injuries and stuff like that. But man, when we have them all together, if we can stay healthy, it's going to be something serious, man. It's going to be a force to be reckoned with for sure.
Yep, 100%. No, what was some other positives? Any other? Well, I mean, there were definitely some other positives. What were some other positives that you saw from the defense?
So big takeaway for me, linebacker, dude, linebacker. And I know we've talked about it a lot, and I know we got some like preseason selections for Barrett Carter and what's his name?
Jeremiah Trotter.
Thank you. I know those dudes have been praised a bunch, but did you see those guys early on in the spring game just running around and making plays? And then you got a Wade Woodaz coming in, and this dude's completing our linebacker core. I don't know if there's a better linebacker core in the nation this season than what Clemson's got going on. You got a guy in Wade Woodaz that's so versatile. This guy can cover like none other. This guy can go out wide. He can cover tight ends. He can cover receivers. He can blitz the quarterback. And then you got Barrett Carter. You got Tom. I mean, these dudes are all over the field. They're running downhill. They're running sideline to sideline. We might have one of the best linebacking cores, if not the best linebacking core in the nation. And we just got finished talking about the defensive line. I mean, these linebackers are for real. I mean, did you see? I mean, just looking at the stats from them last season and their tackles for losses and their total tackles last season and what they should improve on this season. Just with their speed, just with their aggressiveness, just with their ability to put pressure on the quarterback, to put pressure on the offensive line. I mean, that's a highlight for the Clemson defense in my mind. The front seven for Clemson defense is going to be insane this season.
Yes, absolutely. The front seven, absolutely loaded, and the linebackers are just really, really good. I mean, you pretty much covered it all. I mean,
yeah,
this is if this isn't the best, it's one of the best linebacker groups in the country.
It has to be, man.
Yeah, and so I'm interested to see what at least the starting linebackers. Now we have to see some more, from some of the depth pieces. I think T.J. Dudley. He had some really nice moments in the spring game, and I think he's a guy I'm really high on. He was a late get in the 2021 cycle. I think the 2022 cycle, and I think he's a guy that's it's gonna pay off. 4-star guy, and I think he's a guy that's gonna be able to make some plays and contribute early as well.
Right.
But yeah, another takeaway is. I know the wide receiver position was obviously not in the best place.
No, go for it.
But did you feel something different about how secondary was playing?
100%. Go full for it. Do you? Let's go.
I think the secondary group, and we'll talk about. Obviously, they just lost Malcolm Green, but I think the secondary group is. I think they're poised to have a really strong year. One of the stronger years we've seen, in a couple of years. I think this room. I think they faced a lot of adversity last year, especially in the cornerback room due to injuries. Um, but I think there is one. They have just better numbers. They have more bodies in here. With some of the true freshmen who shined. Um, I think there's a lot of experience, and I think there's just it's a lot more in a healthier place than it was last season. And I think you've got some really good depth at safety, and especially with Andrew Makuba, who I thought had a really nice game as well. Thought he looked a
No,
lot more like his former self. He was coming down,
he had an amazing
laying
game.
hits. He wasn't having to play as much corner, and he was allowed to play free. That's the Andrew Makuba that we all know,
That's
and
that's
we
the
saw it as a
that's
freshman.
that's the Andrew Makuba that we remember from freshman year. And then you got a Wiggins out there. I mean, that dude may be a complete shutdown corner this season. He may be.
Oh yeah, he
I'm
might be.
just look. Our secondary is in a great position. They played amazing in this game, and to your point, yes, was our wide receiver group hampered by both injuries and guys just being out? But I don't care, man. This was a weak point for Clemson last season. The secondary, Dabo Sweeney challenged this defense heading into the offseason, heading into spring, or not, excuse me. Yeah, heading into spring to get better, especially in the secondary. And they got better, man. There's no doubt about it. They got better in the secondary. I mean, we got dudes that are true freshmen. You see that dude Barnes in the spring game?
Oh man, Khalil Barnes,
Khalil Barnes? Dang, dude.
Shelton Lewis.
Sheldon Lewis. I mean, we look, that secondary is looking right.
Yeah. And I think just the biggest takeaway, I thought it was really cool to see those young guys that we mentioned, Shelton Lewis and Khalil Barnes, especially. Khalil Barnes was pretty much the player of the game with that game winning pick six.
He sealed the game, man. He sealed the game.
But he was making plays all over the field. He was breaking up passes. He was He was triggering, firing, and breaking up passes.
He was fighting through blocks. He was breaking up screen passes. I mean, he was doing his thing.
Yep. And yeah, I loved Khalil Barnes, but I loved the take when they committed. He was very close to committing to Notre Dame, but when Clemson offered, I thought that they offered at the right time, and they were able to win that recruitment. I always thought he was definitely underrated. I feel pretty strongly about that. I think he's going to be the best safety of the safeties that Clemson took in this class. I think he's going to be the best, and I think he's going to be the best by far. I think he's going to be a really, really good football player. Right. And I'm really excited about him. I think he's going to. I definitely think he'll be able to contribute as well. And Shelton Lewis, guy that pretty much nobody was really familiar with until he committed to Clemson, low 3-star guy. Man, he's really mature. Just if coming in as a mid-year, he's a lot farther ahead than I expected him to be. I thought it was really awesome that he was able to come in early, and I think this cornerback room needed it, but he looked really, really good. So I think he's a guy that we'll definitely see more of in the future. Really intrigued to see how he develops as well. But it was really nice to see him making plays in the spring game, getting that kind of confidence.
For sure.
So all in all, the secondary had a really good, really good outing.
An amazing day. Wiggins had a great day, man.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
Barnes had a great day. I mean, there was a ton of dudes that had a great day, but I really do think Wiggins might be that shutdown corner that Clemson's defense really needs this season. He seems super focused. That guy seems like he is locked in 100%. I mean, I can't say enough about Nate Wiggins. After that Wake Forest game, he took it on the chin. He didn't make any excuses. That guy, he came out and he was like, that'll never happen again. And guess what? It hasn't happened again. And he's done nothing but get better since. So he's obviously our best corner heading into the summer and fall. And I don't expect anything less from him. I think he's going to develop into a shutdown corner. He's going to be a high draft pick, man. That dude is something serious, man. He's got the mental toughness that's required to play that position. And Barnes is a guy that, you know, Dabo was like, you know, he had to make a decision on what side of the ball he was going to play. Hello, I think he made the right decision. You know, at least coming out of the spring game, that dude played unbelievable in the spring game. He had his day for sure. So,
all right. So I think we've given enough love to the defense. We've kind of showered all our praises. Make sure you guys you feel free to leave in the live chat anybody we missed out or you want to highlight. But I felt like we did a pretty comprehensive overview of the guys that really flashed. Still want to see more from the defensive ends.
Of course,
but it wasn't a negative. I thought you saw some pressure, some end pressure as well. But we'll see we'll see how that the development of that position continues. Guys like Cade Denhoff, Zaire Patterson, got to see more from those guys. But
yeah, those dudes have to. Cade Denhoff, Zaire Patterson, those dudes have to become more consistent for Clemson football, right? Those dudes have to really buy in to their position on the team, to their job, and they really have to just become super consistent as defensive end, right? You know, I know we got, you know, the senior guys coming back, and we got all that, but they're going to be needed, right? They're going to play a lot, and they have to produce on the defensive end, right? They have to become reliable options when it comes to the defensive end position, in the edge position. So I look forward to seeing that. Hopefully, you know, those guys get to work in the summer conditioning when it comes to strength and training, and then into fall camp, and then they really, you know, transform their ability and start producing for us in the fall, because we're going to need them. Because, you know, XT, look, as much as I love XT and as much as I want him to have his breakout season and his season that vaults him up to a first-round draft pick, you know, the chances are he may not be there because, you know, he's just got a history of being injured. He's got a history of, you know, not being available. So those guys got to be ready and willing to fill in when necessary. So a lot of opportunity along the edge for Clemson, for sure.
Edward says TJ played well. Yeah, TJ Parker, I thought you saw some flashes from him as well. You saw Vic Burley get in there. He's real, man. Vic Burley is a massive human being. He's going to be really good as well. This entire defensive line class is going to be really, and they're not even all in yet. I know somebody mentioned David Ojebwe. I think it might have been Edward as well. Yeah, he's that kid is he's got some freakish tools, so he's going to be really excited to see what he can be down the line. But yeah, this is one of the most impressive defensive line hauls that Clemson has ever pulled. If not the most. So a lot of talent, really bright future on the line. I mean, what else is new? That's it. You know, if all else fails, Clemson is going to recruit some damn defensive linemen. So
I'm trying to tell you, man.
Get them in there.
I'm trying to tell you, man. It's a defensive lineman factory at Clemson.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. And we have one of the greatest defensive line coaches in the country.
Yes.
No doubt.
All right.
I mean, he's out there doing mat drills with his players. I mean, hello.
There's not many D-line coaches
Yeah.
that you'll find doing that.
How many D-line coaches throughout the country are out there doing mat drills with their team or with their players? So,
all right. So let's kind of close. Let's close off the offense. Let's talk about the positives.
Yep.
Do you want to? I don't remember who went first last time.
I don't know.
I'll just pick one.
Okay.
Let's talk about the running backs. I thought they were arguably not really arguably. I think they were the star of.
Yeah, they were the highlight
for the offense.
They were definitely the highlight. I'll pick my personal favorite. I know you'll talk about somebody else, so I'll leave it for you. But hold on. Goodness.
I kind of find it interesting. You assumed who I'm going to talk about.
I know.
Do you think you know who I'm going to talk about? Because
I do think I know.
We might be thinking of the same person. I don't know. So I'll let you go. Okay. If it is who I'm thinking.
Sorry. Oh, my goodness. Sorry, give me 1 second.
All right, let me see what you guys are talking about in the live chat. Bo can play 100% healthy. I won't be surprised if he's a star wide receiver. It's his year to earn his NFL looks. Yep. I mean, this is a money year. I mean, it's hard to believe that Bo Collins is already a junior. Feels like he hasn't been here that long. But yeah, he's got to, and it's probably because he hasn't always been on the field. But yeah, Bo Collins, he absolutely has to be one of the big time contributors on this team for this offense to work. Because I mean, you've seen flashes of what he's able to do. I early in the season, I felt like he was really, he was really making plays. I mean, he looked really good in the Georgia Tech game. It felt like up until the NC State game, it was like he, that was kind of the shift, and obviously the injury. That was when he went down and just wasn't really able to work himself back all the way. So you hope to get a full season from Bo Collins for sure.
Yeah, Bo Collins. Look, I think Bo Collins has the most potential. Well, I don't know about the most potential, but he's the guy that I look to be the guy this season. Just because he's been kind of one of the most consistent guys throughout these past 2 years of lulls, I guess, that have been the Clemson offense. He's kind of been a bright spot through those 2 years. He's kind of been hampered by a little bit of injuries, but I mean, he's just he's a big body guy. He's a consistent guy, and I think he can really help us this season. We need a Bo Collins to be healthy, to be out there, and really contesting and catching those 50-50 balls that are going to be thrown up by Cade. So,
100%. All right. So what was your running back pick?
All right. So my running back pick is none other than the Phil Maffa.
Okay.
I know you're not going to talk about Phil Maffa.
I was going to talk about Phil Maffa if it wasn't if I had gone first. He was Phil Maffa was going to be the first mention, whether it was it was me.
Oh, were you? Oh,
yeah. I was gonna. I mean, if you weren't going first, Phil Maffa was the guy I was thinking of, and
Oh,
obviously,
okay.
so.
I thought you were going to talk about like Dominique Thomas or somebody.
Well, I will now, but
Okay, yeah,
but yeah,
that's who I thought you were going to talk about. So I was going to talk about Phil Maffa. So Phil Maffa, look, if you guys go back to any of me and Jordan's live post game shows from last season, you will hear both me and Jordan talk extensively about how disappointed we were with our offensive staff and not getting him the carries that he deserved. Phil Maffa had an insane yards per carry average last season and an insanely low per carry game average last season. It's absolutely crazy that we did not utilize this guy more than we did. Look, I am a 100% believer in our boy Will Shipley. No doubt about it. He is for real. He is a versatile back. He can catch out of the backfield. He's got explosive speed. He is a tough runner. But Phil Maffa is the change of pace that we need in the backfield when you have a Will Shipley and a Phil. Like if you got a Will Shipley and a Phil Maffa in the backfield, look, game over, son. That defense is going to – they should feel the pain for 3 or 4 days after they play you because of those two. Because you got the 1-2 punch of Will Shipley and Phil Maffa. Phil Maffa needs way more carries this season. I thought he played exceptionally well. I know the first team offense had 3 offensive linemen that were not playing in this game. I know that he didn't have the breakaway runs like a Dominique Thomas had in the spring game, but Phil Maffa is a load. And in the fourth quarter, when the game's on the line and you need to burn clock or you need to get 5 yards, that is your freaking dude, man. And I can't wait to see how a Garrett Riley offense utilizes the duo of Will Shipley and Phil Maffa. Phil Maffa is one of my favorite players on Clemson. He's just a bruiser, man. He's just a guy that puts his head down. He doesn't care. We talked about in an earlier episode of the All In Show about how he was like, I thought for a second about transferring from Clemson, but this is the school I love. This is where I'm supposed to be, and he's keeping his head down. And him and Will Shipley are going to be dynamic this coming season, in my opinion. So Phil Maffa is my dude, man. I can't wait to see the numbers that he puts up this season because I think they're going to use Will Shipley a lot out of the backfield as a receiver as well. So it would be nice to see Phil Maffa fill up some of those carries, beating those dudes up in the middle, beating those linebackers up, making those safeties think twice about coming downhill because you saw Makuba, right, in the spring game. He bounced off Phil Maffa like he was nothing. And Phil Maffa went for a 20-plus yard gain. So he's a load to tackle. You better wrap him up because he's the real deal.
All right, let's okay, well, oh man, this show has gone by really fast. We are 17 minutes till 11. So let's
man.
there's some stuff beyond the spring game that I want to get to, but so let's we're going to kind of streamline the rest of the offense. But obviously Dominique Thomas, it was and Keith Adams Jr. Were some true standouts as well on Saturday. I mean, Dominique Thomas, they call him Quadzilla for a reason. Man, he's got quads the size of honestly me. So just he's really really impressive. Yeah, 12 carries, 59 yards, and the touchdown. Looked really good. I think he's a guy that's going to contribute as well. And then Keith Adams Jr. I mean, he didn't have the yardage total that Dominic Thomas did, but
Right.
man, is he a load? I mean, Dabo described him as a sledgehammer.
He's a dude, man.
He hits hard. He
Man.
embraces contact.
Yes. Like he runs through people, man.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, man. Like
And chopping those legs. I was like, oh my gosh.
our running back room is
His dad was really strong, but yeah,
our running back room
played a different position.
Our running back room is insane, dude. Our running back room is elite, man. It's insane. Goodness. Phil Maffa, Keith Adams, Dominique Thompson. You know, everybody knows Will Shipley, but man, we got a running back room, dude. And they're going to be special this season. And those two guys, in Dominique Thomas and Keith Adams Jr., they're going to provide the depth for this running back room that I think is necessary, because a lot of people think about the Garrett Riley offense and they think all pass, but if you look at TCU's offense last season, it's not all pass, man. And we got some, when healthy, when we have our full offensive line, when we have a Will Putnam and, all the guys along our offensive line, we're going to be a force to reckon with. We are going to be a team that is capable of just pounding the ball and running it down your throat, especially when you can rotate in 4 dudes like we just talked about. I mean, that's not going to be something that defenses want to see when it comes to the fourth quarter of a game. And we're trying to run clock and we're trying to control a game. Those 4 dudes, look here, man. It ain't going to be good for the defense. I can tell you that.
No.
It ain't going to be good for them.
And it was definitely good to see that, because there's just been some concern. Obviously, Shipley and Maffa both in their 3rd year, but behind them there's just not a lot of guys that we know a lot about.
Right.
And plus you've got Jay Haynes and Jarvis Green coming in the fall as well to bolster that depth. So I think the running back room is in good shape. Heading into the year. So it was good to see Keith Adams and Dominique Thomas, kind of show what they're capable of as well, and make you feel a little bit better if, God forbid, one of Shipley or Maffa goes down and they have to kind of play a little bit more. So let's move on to tight ends real quick. I thought the tight ends had some really, really nice moments. Jake Brenningstool and Josh Sapp especially both had really big plays over the middle of the field. That's just one thing about this Garrett Riley offense that, as uneventful as that spring game was, I think structurally it looks a lot different. And you're seeing the personnel usage, the use of the middle of the field, and all of that, I think is going to be really, really, really important. Banks Pope, guy that probably another guy that Clemson fans probably did not expect to hear his name called, but he showed out. He had a really, really good game. So that was really cool to see that. I don't know if I expect him to be a big time contributor. I mean, I still think, Brenningstool and Sapp and Ennis are going to be ahead of him, but
for sure. Yeah.
But hey, it was good to know that, he has a little bit of, he's got a little bit of playmaking ability. So you have that.
Yeah. I mean, you got a guy like Jake Brenningstool ahead of him. Sage Enos, Josh Sapp. I mean, those guys are going to be ahead of him. But you're right. It was really nice to see both offenses kind of attack the middle of the field. They kind of did like a bootleg thing and attack the middle of the field with both Sage Enos and Jake Brenningstool at different points in the game. And it's just nice to see. Look, us as Clemson fans have been talking about it for a long time. We need to attack the middle of the field. And when you got a guy like Brenningstool that is 6'6", you got a guy in Sage Enos that is 6'4". I mean, you have to attack the middle of the field. And Dabo even talked about it on the broadcast for the spring game. He talked about how when those dudes are covered, they're open if you throw it to the right point, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how this offense utilizes those people. And I know Garrett Riley talked about, in his interviews and stuff like that, about utilizing the middle of the field, especially when you got guys like that. So it's something that Clemson has kind of got away from since their national title runs, but it's nice to see them kind of get back to that, even with running kind of a vanilla version of their new offense.
100%. So running backs, tight ends, I think they were the stars of the offense.
No doubt, no doubt.
In that game, and I want to give out a shout out to some individuals on the offense. We talked some negatives about the offensive line, but there was definitely some positive moments. Harris Sewell, I think he had some. I think he held his own out there. I mean, he did good, man. He got his butt kicked on some reps, but that was going to happen. But I thought Harris Sewell, I think he's a kid that's going to. It's going to be really interesting to see how this offensive line rotation and the starting lineup looks, because Harris Sewell is going to be a guy that's going to be hard to keep off the field. He's a guy that one of those rare true freshmen on the offensive line that just comes in, and he's just well beyond his years.
He performed really well in the spring game. I mean, he was going up against Peter Woods a lot, and I think for the most part he held his own. I mean, and Peter Woods, look, make no mistake about it. We talked about Peter Woods earlier on in the show. He's no chump, and I think he performed adequately against a Peter Woods. So that guy's, you're right. It's going to be hard to keep a guy like that off the field, which is a good thing for the Clemson offensive line. Especially in the past few years where, we've kind of been struggling to have a good five to push out there on the field, especially last year, where we had some injuries and then, it kind of fell off, as we saw later on in the season, as injuries accumulated on the offensive line. So having a guy like Harris Sewell that's able and willing to step up into a role if need be is it's really encouraging for the Clemson offensive line.
Another standout on the offensive line, I thought Tristan Lay. I thought he held his own as well. Left tackle is obviously the one position that Clemson is replacing in a starter on the offensive line. Thought he held his own. Thought he played pretty well. You didn't really hear his name called. You didn't really see him get beat a whole lot.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good sign, because otherwise you have to think about, do we move Blake Miller over to left tackle, or do we move Marcus Tate from guard? Right. Obviously he didn't play in this game, and you kind of have to start retooling and taking guys out of the positions they've been playing for the past year. Obviously, Clemson cross trains a bunch, but you want guys, you want some continuity. You want guys playing in the positions that they're best at. So, I think Tristan Lay is. I think he's well on his way, and hopefully it would be really cool to see him land that starting spot and just kind of natural. I mean, he's a guy that we've been waiting on, former 5-star. And it's kind of it's put up or shut up time for him, and so I think he's on his way. I saw somebody in the chat mention Ryan Linthicum. Yeah, obviously Will Putnam was out, so Ryan Linthicum, he's one of the only. He's really the only other true center that Clemson really has. I mean, they've had some other guys that have taken snaps at center, but Ryan Linthicum is a center, played center in high school,
Yep.
and Clemson recruited him to play primarily center. But I think he played some. He's obviously he's played some guard too, but. The future for him and the plan for him is to play center, and so didn't think he was. I thought he battled pretty well. Just a really tough ask. The players he was going up against, and
Right.
when you're getting beat at center, it's kind of hard to run your offense. But thought he battled and held his own, and so we'll see how that goes. And obviously, I don't expect him to be the starter. I think Will Putnam that's Will Putnam's job to lose, but hope good to see him get some experience and we get to get a real good look at him. And then it was just cool to see some of the other some of the freshmen out there. Ian Reed, he had his moments where he looked like a freshman. Zach Owens, or otherwise known as Flapjack. You saw him at guard. He was playing Zach Owens is 6'7". He played tackle in high school, but he's out there as a 6'7" left guard. That was pretty goofy to see, but he's also got some really nice dance moves. I don't know if you saw, but he's a really funny guy. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite of the freshmen, just because I think he's got a hilarious personality. So, but other than that, do you have any final takeaways from the offensive line before we move on from the spring game and kind of talk about quickly? We'll hit on some of the other news this week.
No, I think you kind of hit it all. I'm really excited about the Clemson offensive line. I think they played really well in the spring game, and I think we have some options, and I think we have some depth that we have built this spring, which is really encouraging because we know what we have in some of the guys that are out this spring. So it's really nice to be able to get, some guys that are younger, some guys that will be the future of Clemson offensive line and be the depth this season. So really excited about it, man. It's going to pay dividends. Those injuries and those and Will Putnam being gone for a wedding, it's going to pay dividends for this Clemson offensive line for sure. And I think, honestly, as much as the Clemson coaching staff, especially on the offensive side of the ball, has been questioned, I think we got it right at offensive line. I think, we got it right there on our offensive line coach. So I look forward to seeing the development of these guys. We're recruiting different. We're recruiting a different type of body, and I think it's going to pay dividends in the future for Clemson football.
I agree 100%. All right, that was our long-winded review of the spring game. I think we covered pretty much everything that we wanted to talk about. We didn't really get into special teams. Punting is still kind of the whatever, but there were some good moments. I thought Jackson Smith looked really good at times. Aiden Swanson was kind of more of the same. But hey, the kicking was solid, other than the blocked extra point, but wasn't any wasn't any misses, blatant, just misses. And Liam Boyd obviously didn't know he had that in him, but
hitting that bomb, dude, hitting that bomb.
But special teams, that's going to be that'll be another thing to watch, especially the punting situation, because that is very much up in the air. But all right, let's talk about some of the other news that happened this week. A lot has been made about Clemson's scholarship situation. As you guys know, that Clemson is currently over the scholarship limit. They were at 88. as recent as a few hours ago, but they are now at 87. But there is definitely, obviously the NCAA limit is 85, and Clemson has until August to get that number down.
Yep.
And so there was some stories these past couple of days about Clemson possibly taking, well, not really taking scholarships from former walk-ons, because if you understand how walk-on scholarships work, you're not really taking them away. They're not guaranteed to begin with, but so that was a massive social media firestorm. I don't even want to get into it too much, but Clemson is definitely got to find some ways to get below the scholarship limit. They're not on a time crunch right now. They have time, and but that's something to watch because the transfer portal window is open, and as you know, Clemson just had a transfer out a few hours ago in Malcolm Green. So let's kind of talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about this. And you told me about the social media storm that hit Clemson this past weekend or this past week, whatever the case may be. And I want people to understand. Look, this is not something unique to Clemson. This is not something unique to anyone in college football. Walk-on scholarships are on a year-by-year basis based off of the roster that comes back, based off of the roster that is available. Anybody that comes on to a walk-on position or a preferred walk-on position for Clemson or any other university in the country understands that they do not have a guarantee for a scholarship. Even if they gain a scholarship for that year, it is a year-by-year scholarship situation. Dabo Swinney is not taking scholarships and just putting people out in the cold and dropping people off into homeless encampments in Clemson, South Carolina. Okay, so let's relax a little bit on the social media side of things, where people just tend to overreact all the time. Okay, Clemson is one of the programs that accept more walk-on players than any other program in the country, and they give those players more scholarships than most programs in the country. Okay, but those are still a year-by-year basis scholarships. All of these players, all of these walk-ons came to Clemson knowing that they were going to pay for the education that they received or the college that they attended in Clemson University for 4 years. If they get awarded a scholarship, that's a bonus. That's not a guarantee. So for all of these people out here demonizing Dabo Swinney like he's just out here snatching scholarships from the poor kids is absolutely ridiculous. And it's absolutely out of bounds. And you don't know what you're talking about in Division I college football sports if you think that. So I just wanted to say that. And I just wanted to say that, look, this is a problem that has been a part of college football, that has been a part of college athletics in general for decades. And it's been made more of a problem because of COVID, because people have multiple years of eligibility because of the 2020 season and because of the COVID season. So Dabo Swinney did not anticipate Xavier Thomas coming back. He did not anticipate Tyler Davis coming back. He did not anticipate a lot of these players coming back, but they came back. They have scholarships. that were offered to them. They are the players that were offered scholarships in the beginning. So therefore, they will keep their scholarships, and the guys that were walk-ons that did not have scholarships when they come to Clemson will lose their scholarships if that is necessary. But guess what? Look, we're already down. We were at how many? We need to get down to 85. We were at 88. Now we're down to 87 because Malcolm Green entered the transfer portal. So now we're down to 87. So now if 2 more people transfer, nobody, including the walk-ons that have a year-to-year scholarship that's not guaranteed, will keep their scholarship. Okay? So if 2 more people transfer, I don't want to see these Clemson fans out here being like, Dabo Swinney needs to go to the transfer portal and take blah, 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 blah. Okay? Because you're the same people out there on Twitter in the freaking the blue check brigade that are out here being like, oh, Dabo Swinney's taking scholarships from poor
Oh, did you not hear? Blue checks are gone. They're gone today. So
blue checks are gone?
Yeah, unless you paid for Twitter Blue or something like that. All the people that did have check marks don't have them anymore. So,
I didn't know.
That just happened though. That was just a new change. But so the check mark brigade is no more. I mean, they're still going to be. I mean, you don't lose the pretentiousness with the check mark, so that's still going to remain. But
of course, yeah. I know. I get what you're saying. Apparently, the blue check mark brigade is no more. Shout out to Elon Musk for that one. But I just want people to understand. Look, I mean, he's not taking scholarships away from kids that were banking on scholarships. These kids were already planning on paying for school when they came to Clemson because they didn't have a scholarship to begin with. So at the end of the day, just relax, people. Just relax. This is the business of college football. Everybody wanted all these players to get paid. Everybody said, oh, scholarships don't mean anything. They have no value. These players should get paid. And now they're the people saying that, oh, you're taking scholarships from people, so therefore you're the demon. You're the bad guy because you took a scholarship from people. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought scholarships didn't mean anything. They had no value. You should pay them, right? So what is it, people? What is the case? Do scholarships mean something or do they not? What's the case? I mean, I don't know, Jordan. You go ahead and take it away, man.
Yeah, it's I mean, you pretty much covered all the frustrations about that, and this is something that happens at every single program. And Clemson actually is one of the few programs that hasn't had this problem a lot because they recruit to a number and they don't oversign. This past recruiting class was the first time that Clemson signed more than 25 guys in a long time. Yep. And so it was unfortunate. I mean, and I think it was something that Clemson needed to do. And I don't think they should regret taking as large of a class they did. It's just the fact of the matter is you expected to have this many people, this time last year, and you have an excess. You have more than you thought because you had people that you thought would have been gone are back. And the guys that are coming back are guys that you definitely would like coming back. I mean, it's if Tyler Davis and Ruka Roro say, hey, we want to use our extra year. You don't say no to that because well, I want to keep little Timmy's scholarship. You don't do that. That's not how that works. And the players that were scholarship players from the beginning are always going to get preferential treatment. There's a pecking order to these things. Whether you like that or not, that is the business of college football. There's not a single coach in America that would say no to a veteran, experienced and impact player coming back just because this walk-on that was on scholarship for a season won't have his next year, even though these people don't seem to realize that the players that are walk-ons are the ones, in the best position to be able to pay their own way, and they were paying their own way. And the
What?
scholarship is a bonus. It's a reward for the time spent and put in. So
No way. Nope.
and
I don't believe it, Jordan. Nope.
and
I
if
don't
they
believe
don't, and if they aren't in a financial situation where they can pay it, if they're walking on, they typically have some other form of financial aid that is helping them pay for school, whether it's
You don't.
academic scholarship or federal aid from the government.
You don't say. You
People
don't
don't,
say.
but people don't
You
really. They don't think
you
that deep into it. Sports fans in
you mean
general don't
you
think
mean
that
the
deep into it.
people that walked on to Clemson had another way to pay for school?
Yeah,
What?
I know it's a crazy.
They weren't
crazy
just
concept.
they weren't just banking on a scholarship?
Yeah.
What? I don't believe it, man. Nope.
Yeah, there's more than just an athletic scholarship. There's more than one way to pay for school as a student athlete, and
Oh my goodness,
the
man. These
walk-ons
people.
that walked on were able to walk on and were in a position to walk on because they had a way to pay for school
These
beyond
people.
a scholarship.
These people are absolutely ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. Look, Dabo Swinney is one of the most genuine people in college football, which is why he gets killed so much in the media because he's genuine. He's a guy that looks you in the face and he tells you what he thinks, regardless of whether it's politically correct or regardless of whether it's going to hurt your feelings. So to accuse a guy like Dabo Swinney of just taking scholarships willy-nilly from people who can't pay for school. Come on.
That's the
Man.
thing. He hasn't even done it yet.
Yeah, exactly. Like these people are getting up in arms over something that hasn't happened.
It's
Literally,
hypothetical.
it's like, oh, maybe by August it'll happen. So we're just going to pretend like it already happened and kill Dabo Swinney for it. Why? For what? We've already had one person transfer. We just finished the spring game 5 days ago. Oh, and now, oh yeah, for sure. We're gonna destroy two kids' dreams. They're gonna have to drop out of college and not go to Clemson anymore because Dabo Swinney took their scholarship away. Get out of here, dude.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like you people are crazy. You people, y'all need to get in touch with reality because it's absolutely ridiculous. Y'all don't know how the real world works. I mean, come on. Like let's be real here.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's a cesspool, and it's why you have to, especially when it comes to social media, you just gotta realize it's not a real place. It's a bunch of it's where people can voice their whatever and say whatever and without consequence, because they don't really. I mean, some people put their face on it, some don't, but you still you can say whatever you want, and it's you don't have to. You can detach yourself from some of the impact because you're on a screen and not talking to someone face to face. So, but hey, I'm definitely a part of that. So I can't be too hypocritical. But anyway, to kind of put a bow on it. Obviously, we mentioned Malcolm Green transferring. Obviously, guy that's been in the program a long time, former 4-star recruit at Highland Springs.
Did that shock you
really
at
talented
all?
kid.
Did that shock you at all that Malcolm Green transferred?
A little bit, because it did. If you had asked me this, if I didn't know some of the things I knew now, if this happened like 3 months ago, this would not have surprised me at all. But there was he had made comments over the spring about how this was the best he had ever felt, how he was finally completely healthy, and you were just kind of thinking, oh well, it seems like he's in a really good place mentally, and he's not really thinking about training. But at the end of last season, I would have said, yeah, he would have been one of my guys that I'd be on watch to transfer. But But no, Malcolm Green, he's a guy that's been in the program a long time, hasn't really been able to stay healthy. Former 4-star recruit. So
He was a guy that honestly I thought could really contribute this season. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I look go back to last episode, and I had him starting in the spring game. So
yeah.
that shows you how much I know.
I mean,
That shows you,
and he played a ton. No, I mean, he
yeah,
played a good bit, but
that shows you the insight that I know for Clemson football.
But hey,
I thought he would be a key contributor for Clemson this year. I thought he would be a really good depth person for the secondary this year, and clearly that's not going to be the case because he's transferring out. So
yeah,
I wish him the best, just like I wish every other Clemson player that transfers out. I hope he finds a good landing spot. One of the things that I think are not talked about enough when it comes to the transfer portal is the amount of guys that enter the transfer portal that don't get a home. And do I think that will be Malcolm Green's case? No, because I think he's a really good corner. He's a really good player. I think he will get a home. However, I don't think it's talked about enough about how many guys enter the transfer portal and then they no longer have a scholarship, right?
yeah.
And that's kind of the dark side of college football. That's kind of the dark side of the transfer portal. It was always created, I think, in the spirit of the best thing for the player, but it doesn't always work out that way, right?
Yep. And but listen, Malcolm, he's talented enough. He's going to find somewhere. Wouldn't surprise me if he goes and ends up at Virginia, reunites with Tony Elliott. I mean, hometown state. I think it would make a lot of sense. They need some cornerback help,
Right.
so it would not surprise me. I think it would, yeah, if that was his destination. But yeah, obviously, best of luck to him. And honestly, the way I see it is, I think it's a really good sign about the strength of this cornerback room in a way too, because, I think some of these mid-year enrollees are a lot better than maybe I think the staff was really high on these mid-years, but I don't think the general public, the general Clemson fan, was expecting some of these kids to come in and contribute as early and be as in as big of a roles as they appear to be. So I think that's a good sign for the strength and the depth of this cornerback room, and I think it's in a million times better shape than it was last season, even with this departure. So, but best of luck to Malcolm Green. Think he's gonna land on his feet somewhere, and be a big time contributor for somebody. So best of luck to him. But yeah, our final little, but before we wrap up the show, Clemson, a little bit of recruiting news. Clemson did just get a commit today from one Drew Woodaz, 3-star linebacker out of Jesuit High School, Tampa, Florida. Obviously, if that last name sounds familiar, it's because he is the little brother of Wade Woodaz. So really awesome get for Clemson. I think it makes a lot of sense. He's not obviously his rating isn't going to jump off the page sheet, but neither did Wade Woodaz's ranking out of high school either. But they share a lot of similarities for obvious reasons. Both really, really good athletes. So it would be really cool to see him come in and be a contributor as well, because then we could, as Edward says in the comments, we could have the Whoop-Ass brothers.
Yeah, Whoop-Ass brothers. Another gem cool from Dabo Sweeney in the spring game.
Yeah,
the Whoop-Ass brothers.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
But let me ask you this before. Okay, so in the comment section, please go ahead and get your questions in before we go ahead and end the show tonight. This is your opportunity to go ahead and get your questions in for me and Jordan Bowman to ask us literally whatever you want. before we get off of here tonight. But Jordan, I wanted to ask you this one last thing, okay? Because I heard I listened to a couple YouTube videos and I read a couple articles, and I thought there was an interesting comparison made between Clemson and Florida State, right? And the I guess the comparison was between Clemson, who mainly recruits out of the high school scene, right? Clemson recruits elite high school talent. There's no doubt about it. Florida State has not been recruiting the most elite high school talent, but they've been doing super well in the transfer portal, right? They've been in the top of the country when it comes to the transfer portal. And, it's kind of been talked about the clash of two different philosophies when it comes to the end of September. Clemson and Florida State, as you know, will play the end of September this season, possibly repeat that game in the ACC championship game if all things play out where people think they will. But what are your thoughts on the contrast of those two philosophies with a Dabo Swinney who really focuses on high school talent and recruiting from high school versus Mike Norvell and his kind of approach where maybe he doesn't recruit as well in high school as Dabo Swinney, but he does recruit elite portal talent. What's kind of your thoughts on those two different approaches?
Well, I'm always going to have a preference for obvious reasons. I think at the end of the day, to keep it short and sweet, recruiting is the lifeblood of any program, and I do think that Clemson's model of success is more sustainable in the long run. I will say that Florida State is building some recruiting momentum in the 2024 class. They're putting, I think they're starting to parlay some of the on-field success into recruiting momentum. So, if Mike Norvell really builds up and starts puts more resources into that and starts getting returns on that side of the spectrum, then we'll be having a different conversation. But obviously, none of the kids in the 2024 class are going to be playing this season, so it doesn't really matter for at least for this year. But I think that, yes, the transfer portal is something that Clemson probably needs to reevaluate their stance on in a lot of ways and how they use it. But I do think that the model for success is recruiting through the high school ranks. It will always be recruiting through the high school ranks. That is, I don't think any truly sustained, successful championship caliber program is using the transfer portal in the way that Florida State is right now. It may be good enough if you evaluate really well to have a really nice team. But if you want to build a program that's going to last and really stay at the top, like Clemson has for so long, you're going to be it's going to be from the guys that you get out of high school and develop for 3 to 4 plus years. And so it's going to be really interesting to see the clash of styles, at least for this season, because these are kind of very diametrically opposed roster construction methods. So, but it'll be interesting, and that's something that's been pointed out a lot. And there's a chance that these two teams play twice. So it's a really important game for both programs. One is trying to reestablish itself as one of the elites in college football, and the other is trying to rise from a really, really down period and kind of reclaim some of their past glory. So going to be really interesting. Going to be really interesting for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at some of these last few comments, and then we'll get on off of here.
Absolutely. To the comments. thank you guys for hanging out with us, man. Please hit that like button. Please share our video. If you guys are in any Clemson groups or in any college football groups, please share our video. We really do appreciate it. We are trying to grow this channel. We're trying to bring more visibility to this channel. So we do appreciate you guys liking the video and sharing it out to your various groups.
Edward says, fun fact, he is from Columbia. This is in reference to Heaven Brown Schuler, and I didn't mention this. I didn't mention this on air, but I did put it in the comment section that Heaven Brown Schuler, 4-star defensive lineman, is set to announce his commitment at I think 4:30 tomorrow. Clemson is one of those finalists. I do think that Clemson should be seen as the favorite. I think they've been seen as the favorite for a long time. He's one of those recruits that has, kept his recruitment low key. He's not one for, he's kind of one that didn't really, drag out the process or anything like that. Clemson appeared to be the leader and has been the leader for a long time. And he kind of seems to know what he wants. So I think Clemson fans should be feeling really good going into tomorrow. That'll be a really nice get for Nick Eason and co. Clemson just continues to recruit really well on the defensive line. So I think you should feel pretty good there. Hey, and the Gamecocks are in his finalists, so it'd be nice to get a win. As Edward says, he is from Columbia. I think he's got a couple of Gamecock family members as well. So,
yeah.
As much as Gamecock fans have been flexing over some of their recent recruiting success, it'll be nice to get a win for sure. Kind of curb that a little bit.
Right.
Let me see what else. Good. We need to start building some recruiting momentum. I think I think Clemson is just fine where they're at. Keep in mind it is April. Clemson is definitely not. They have never recruited the way that South Carolina is, where they getting a bunch of commits early in the year. It really always comes down to June and those summer, in the summer period when they start to really build momentum, and especially these recruiting, the recent addition of the recruiting, cookout and all of that, and is the way that Clemson does business, and they've always slow played a lot of these recruitments. So this is just. I don't think that Clemson needs to start building some recruiting momentum. I don't think they're in trouble right now. And hey, they're about to they got to commit today. They're going to. I feel pretty confident in their chances of getting a commitment tomorrow. So nothing is a sure thing. So, but it's felt like Clemson has been the leader in that recruitment for a long time. So, but I think Clemson fans should be patient and. You'll see the dividends start to pay because I think Clemson is in it for a lot of really, really good players.
All right. So Isaiah Smith, go ahead.
Wait, no. Who are you?
No, good. Go. You're good.
Well, let's do it because I already clicked on it.
All right.
How confident are y'all on the wide receiver core improving and staying healthy in the new offense? I don't know, to be honest.
That's a loaded question. Isaac Smith, or Isaac Smith. I would say it's 50-50 at this point, especially with the wide receiver core at Clemson. I think we had
It's really the staying healthy part that I'm just.
As I've stated before, I think Clemson has all the talent in the world when it comes to the wide receiver group. However,
they at least have enough talent. I wouldn't say all the talent in the world, but
they have enough talent to get the job done.
Yeah.
So it's all about being healthy, and I think that's kind of a 50-50 thing at this point. So,
we'll have to see because it's just after 2 years. After 2 years of that position being riddled with injury. You don't know. But
you never know. You never know.
That is the hope, and a lot of the success of this offense depends on it.
Right.
So
absolutely.
but we'll see. Let's see some other.
Go with whatever you were doing before. Yep.
We got him. We really need Mike Matthews. Yes, I feel really, really strongly about Clemson's chances in Mike Matthews' recruitment specifically. I know there's been some. I would say Georgia is in on his recruitment, Ohio State, some other USC, some other big time programs, but I feel pretty good about Clemson's chances, and I think him showing up, pretty much unannounced during the week, was a really good sign. It's always good to have when recruits are coming, especially when they're bringing their parents unannounced and showing up and visiting. I think it's always a good sign. So, but hey, there's still a ways to go in that recruitment. But I really like Clemson's chances, and I think there's been some sentiment that he might be considering leaving the state of Georgia. So, hey, who knows? I don't want to put anything out there because there's definitely Clemson definitely has some staunch competition, but I think Clemson is very much in that one and has a really good shot.
There you go.
I think they can do it, and hopefully Sammy Brown. Yep, that's a recruitment that I think is I think it's a Clemson Georgia race. I don't think there's. I think those are going to be the final two when it's all said and done, and that one's going to be tough because he's visited both schools a trillion times, and he's really had a lot of positive things to say about both programs. So that's one to keep your eye on. That would be a really, really nice get as well. And that's a relationship that Clemson's been building for a long time, but so is Georgia. So you just have to just see how these things play out because there's still a ways to go in that recruitment. So a lot can change.
Yep.
KJ Bolden, it would be massive. Also Houston Edrick. Yep. I think those are obviously two more 5 stars that Clemson is pushing hard for. I think there's still a long way to go in those recruitments as well. I wouldn't say Clemson is the leader in either of those though, for sure.
Yeah.
John Hendricks says, I just talked to a 4-star out of Peach County. Offensive
tackle 2025, 4-star QB out of Houston, Georgia. Both told me Clemson is their dream school, but offer hardly nothing. The NIL money tip.
Well, hey, I mean, I am not as in. I don't want to say too much because I don't. Obviously, I'm not as in tune with the NIL front of things. I know that Clemson has done a lot to be at the forefront of student athletes, and NIL with the new CAB building and all of that. But obviously, that's not the NIL that John Hendricks is talking about.
I think Clemson offers a lot of NIL that is not traditional NIL, if you will, right? So, I don't know. Maybe Clemson doesn't offer the big money things, but when you think about Paul Journey and all of that kind of stuff that Clemson has offered for a very long time for their athletes, I think that speaks volumes when it comes to the right type of recruits and to the recruits that Clemson traditionally offers. I think that speaks volumes to them. You got your micro internships that they do. You got your community service that they do. You got all that kind of stuff. And, it just, Clemson operates a little bit differently than a lot of the universities. I think Dabo Swinney has been forward thinking a lot when it comes to the NIL. And it may not be in the form of big paydays, but it is in the form of, setting yourself up for life outside of college football and outside of college athletics. So that's just my thoughts. I don't know.
5-star Bryant Westcott. Yep, we'll be here for the June 2nd visit. Yep, that's a really big thing to secure. I think so far that's the only official visit that he's scheduled. I mean, obviously he'll schedule more, but so far I think Clemson was the first one he scheduled. So I think that's a positive development. So I mean he's still got a long way to go in that recruitment as well, but hey, Clemson, I think, is putting their best foot forward. So we'll see. All right, last one.
All right, here we go.
I agree with you but kids sometimes have their parents in their ears, and they for now rather than the. Yep, I mean that's an unfortunate situation. Kids definitely get bad advice all the time. So that's just one of the things that. NIL is still a very new thing, and that's something that's going to be a part of, plenty of players, recruitment.
Absolutely.
And, the parents are always going to have influence on how all that plays out for sure. And it depends on the parents, the type of parents they have, because some are definitely more equipped to give their children the right advice than others. Houston Edrick said he's been to Clemson 4 or 5 times so far and loves it. I didn't say that Clemson is not in it for those two. For Houston Edrick. I just said it's not. I wouldn't call Clemson the leader right now, but I do think that Clemson is very much a player, and they're again with KJ Bolden, with Bryant Wesco, with Houston Edrick, Sammy Brown. We're still in April. We still got a ways to go in those commitments. So there is a lot of movement, and obviously Clemson does its magic in those, in the summer, especially as of late. So getting them on campus is huge. So that's your goal. And Clemson typically has a really high success rate when they get the guys they want on campus. So, all right, guys. We went like 20 minutes over what we normally do, but obviously we started the show late, so felt like we should give you guys the courtesy and give you guys a little more airtime. You see our beautiful faces.
There you go. Yeah.
But seriously, we still got 26 people in here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really awesome show. Covered a lot. Spring game, covered a lot, but we got a lot of other stuff covered as well. But as always, we are here every Thursday at 9 p.m. So make sure Eastern time. So make sure you continue to have those notifications on so you know when we go live. And make sure, like as I said in the beginning of the show, make sure you guys check out those links in the description. If you want to donate to Mark Rogers, the Voice of College Football YouTube channel, there's Venmo and PayPal links. If you want to consider joining the Patreon, that link is there as well. But other than that, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will send it over to Tiger Paul Craven to close us out.
Hey, you guys, thank you so much for showing out. 23 people still in here in the live chat. Please hit that like button. Please share our video. We really do appreciate it. We bring this content to you every Thursday at 9 p.m. And we look every time we log on here and we talk Clemson football. We are amazed about how many people come on here and comment and interact with us. So we really do appreciate it. At the end of the day, you guys are what make this show happen. And this is the Clemson Tigers All-In Show with myself and Jordan Bowman. And we will see you next Thursday at 9 p.m. Until then, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He is Jordan Bowman. We'll see you next time.
Later, y'all.